He dies at the end.
Severance. Season 2, Episode 7 is a visually and emotionally intense journey, one that digs deeper into the psychological complexity of its characters, particularly Mark and his wife, Gemma. In this episode, the boundaries between past and present are blurred as we are taken through a series of emotional flashbacks and shocking revelations. There's also a major twist involving Gemma's situation, her captivity in Lumon, and her desperate attempt to escape. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. Let's break down the key moments and attempt to make sense of the mysteries that this episode left us with.
I want to go home.
Mark and Gemma's past. The episode opens with a glimpse into Mark and Gemma's past. We see a younger Gemma, a university professor, walking through campus. She makes her way to the library where there's a blood donation drive. It's there that she first meets Mark, also a professor at the same university. The chemistry between the two is instant, and their connection is palpable as they bond over their work. This is where their story begins, an innocent meeting that eventually blossoms into a deep and meaningful relationship. Their love story, as we come to learn, is filled with both beautiful moments and heartbreaking struggles. Mark and Gemma's bond grows stronger as they start dating and eventually get married. They're a perfect match in many ways, but even the strongest relationships face challenges. One of their most difficult moments occurs when Gemma suffers a miscarriage, a loss that deeply affects both of them. Mark, ever the supportive husband, stands by Gemma as she grapples with the emotional fallout, but even the strongest support can't shield them from the pain of such a loss. Despite the hardships, their relationship seems resilient, though moments of doubt and questioning do arise. Still, their love for each other helps them weather these storms. However, there's a darker undertone to these memories, and as we move forward in the episode, the lines between the past and the present begin to blur, leading us to question how much of this love story is real or if it's been manipulated by outside forces.
Just for a little while.
But it's been 6 weeks.
The reintegration process. The reintegration of Mark's two selves is another key focus in this episode. At the end of episode 6, we saw Mark's innie and outie merging, a process that left him unconscious and in a vulnerable state. Episode 7 picks up with Mark's sister, Devon, still reeling from what happened to him. She's unsure of what's truly happening to her brother, and the presence of Regabi, the scientist overseeing Mark's reintegration, only adds to her concerns. Devon's skepticism about the reintegration process grows, especially when she learns that Mark had supposedly agreed to the procedure. This news is hard for her to believe, as she knows her brother well and doesn't think he would willingly submit to such an invasive process. But Regabi assures her that Mark did indeed agree to reintegration, and that Gemma is alive, though she's being held in a secret part of the Lumon facility. Devon's concern for Mark reaches a boiling point, and she eventually decides to take matters into her own hands. She contemplates contacting Harmony Coble, a former floor manager at Lumon, for help. Harmony, now fired, still seems to hold some sway over the situation, but Regabi warns Devon that involving Harmony could only make things worse for Mark, so she reluctantly agrees to trust Regabi for the time being. This proves to be a wise decision, as Mark wakes up the next morning, disoriented but alive. Even though Mark is alive, the reintegration process is far from simple. He still appears to be experiencing flashbacks to his past with Gemma, and it's unclear whether he's fully aware of what's happening to him. The reintegration process may have saved his life, but it's clear that it's taken a significant toll on his mind.
Gemma, stop! Gemma!
Gemma's captivity. While Mark's journey through reintegration is ongoing, the episode also shifts its focus to Gemma's present situation. It turns out that Gemma is alive, but she's trapped in the bowels of Lumon Industries, subjected to an elaborate and cruel series of experiments. How she got here and why she's being held captive is still unclear, but the episode raises more questions than answers. Gemma's existence inside Lumon is far from ordinary. She's kept in a room and monitored by Dr. Maurer, a scientist involved in the experiments. Dr. Maurer seems to have a strange fascination with Gemma, even going so far as to suggest that she move on from Mark and find someone else. This suggestion doesn't sit well with Gemma, who repeatedly asks about her husband. Dr. Maurer's response, telling her that Mark has moved on, raises a red flag. It's clear that he's manipulating her, and the experiments she's being subjected to are cruel and invasive. Gemma's life in captivity is controlled by a series of rooms that she's forced to walk through. Each room presents a different scenario, and inside each room, her inner self is awakened. These scenarios, which seem to be carefully constructed by the Lumon team, include experiences where Gemma plays different roles, from a flight attendant to a dentist, and even Mark's wife. Every time she enters a new room, a different version of her inner self emerges, as if her personality is being fragmented and controlled by the corporation. In one particularly disturbing moment, Dr. Maurer hints that Gemma should accept her new reality and find peace in the idea of moving on. He suggests that she find a new partner in one of the simulations. It's as if he's trying to break her spirit, to convince her that her old life with Mark is gone and that she should simply accept her fate. But Gemma isn't having it. In a burst of defiance, she knocks Dr. Maurer out with a chair and tries to escape. She makes her way to the elevator that leads to freedom, but just as she's about to escape, Seth Milchick intervenes, forcing her to return to her original floor.
Turning around and heading back in, it would be greatly appreciated.
The mystery of Gemma's fate. The final mystery of the episode centers around the question of whether Gemma is actually alive or dead. Throughout the episode, we see flashes of Gemma's life with Mark, which seem to contradict the present-day scenes where she's being held captive in Lumon. At one point, Mark receives a visit from two police officers who inform him that Gemma has died in a car accident. If this is true, then how can Gemma still be alive in the Lumon offices? There are two possible theories to explain this discrepancy. The first theory is that Lumon lied to Mark about Gemma's death, perhaps as part of an elaborate plan to bring her into the corporation's experiments. It's possible that she was never really dead, but instead she was brought into Lumon's fold to be used as a test subject in their twisted experiments on grief and loss. The second theory is that Gemma had already undergone severance before her accident, and while her real self died in the crash, her inner version remains alive in the Lumon office. In this case, what we're seeing is not the real Gemma, but her inner self, separated from the reality she once knew. This would explain why Gemma's inner self appears to be so disconnected from her true identity, constantly forced to live out different roles in the simulations.
You like her. She's easy to like.
Chikhai Bardo. The title of the episode, Chikhai Bardo, is a reference to a concept in Buddhist philosophy, which refers to a state of transition between life and death. This is an apt title for the episode, as Gemma appears to be caught in a state of limbo between the life she once knew and the cruel experiments she's being subjected to at Lumon. Her inner self seems to be trapped in this state, unable to break free from the corporate forces controlling her every move. It's revealed that Gemma's life with Mark was disrupted by her involvement with Lumon Industries, the fertility doctor who appears early in the episode, connected to the couple's visit to a fertility clinic, is the same doctor orchestrating her transformation within Lumon's facility. The idea of killing one's ego as part of the Chikhai Bardo process is integral to Gemma's severance experience. By entering Lumon's experimental program, Gemma inadvertently signed herself up for a procedure that would erase her old identity, including her deep emotional attachment to Mark. This severance is not just physical, but psychological, as she is reprogrammed and reborn as Ms. Casey in the severed world, devoid of any past connections. The experimental rooms she is subjected to, each designed to push her into different personas, reflect this attempt at erasing her former self. Gemma's time in these rooms involves a series of psychological tests designed to break down her emotional ties to her former life. The scenarios she experiences, like dealing with a domineering husband or being in an adventurous environment, are ways to rewire her psyche. The dentist scenario, the Christmas-themed tests, and Dr. Maurer's cruel suggestion that Mark has moved on are all part of an elaborate psychological experiment to sever Gemma from her past. Dr. Maurer, in his manipulative approach, even hints at Gemma's need to let go of her feelings for Mark, suggesting she move on. However, what becomes apparent in episode 7 is that Gemma is not entirely lost to her past. Even as she shifts between her severed selves in each room, a part of her still clings to her memories of Mark. Despite Lumon's attempts to reshape her, her emotional ties to him remain potent, as seen when she attempts to escape her confinement in the exports department and expresses a longing to reconnect with Mark. Gemma's attempts to escape the exports department and her desire to reach Mark suggest that the severance process is far from complete. She remains aware of her past and the emotional connection to Mark that cannot be wiped away. The fractured nature of her mind only makes her struggle more intense as she becomes a different person in every room. Yet, no matter what persona she inhabits, her desire to be reunited with Mark is clear. It's as if she knows that escaping the severance procedure means rediscovering herself and possibly reconnecting with Mark. In the final moments, Gemma's escape is thwarted, but her desire for freedom and rebirth remains undeterred. As the show continues, the question remains: can Mark free Gemma from her psychological prison, and can they both heal from the emotional scars created by Lumon's invasive experiments? The implications of this will likely unfold in future episodes, leaving viewers to wonder if true emotional healing or a reunion between Mark and Gemma is even possible within the confines of Lumon's twisted world. As we move into the next episode, it's clear that the mystery of Gemma's fate will continue to unfold, and we'll likely learn more about the true nature of Lumon's experiments. For now, we're left with more questions than answers. But one thing is certain: the journey for Mark and Gemma is far from over.
No, that's what it is.
Kid's a genius. You should flunk every other child.
I couldn't agree more.
Our nerdy thoughts. Severance Season 2, Episode 7 is a masterclass in psychological drama, blending emotional depth with mind-bending twists. As we watch Mark and Gemma's story unravel, we're left to grapple with questions about identity, memory, and control. Is Gemma alive or dead? What's the true purpose of the experiments at Lumon? And how will Mark and Gemma's paths intersect again? Can they truly find a way back to each other? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching.
Now what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.